and welcome to Maiden's Cliff. Hello everyone and welcome to Maiden's Cliff. My name is Justin. I am the photographer of JM Naturescapes, and today I am planning to shoot an incredible winter Milky Way panorama here. And I want to teach you guys how to shoot Milky Way panoramas, specifically the winter Milky Way panoramas, because in my opinion, they are the most challenging form of astropanorama to do, not including the double Milky Way arch, which is a heavily composited photo. So winter Milky Way arches, the first thing that I would recommend you learning and to how to plan to do is virtually scout. So what you could do is go on Google Maps, click on the Street View button, and what you're going to do is look at all the lines and all the little bubbles everywhere. Pick a location in Bortle 4 or darker skies, wherever those dark skies are to you. And thankfully, I'm in Maine and have some of the darkest skies, if not the darkest skies, east of the Mississippi River. The Upper Peninsula of Michigan is a great contender for some incredible dark skies, but Maine really has some incredible dark skies. So the next thing to do would be, after you find out your location, to then make sure that you check the weather, because winter, the weather can be all over the place. If it's anything like Maine, 2 days ago, we had an absolutely insane warm up and insane windstorm. We had 55 to 75 mile an hour winds all throughout the state. The coast got hit the hardest, and it was 55 degrees after a super cold spell of it being between -5 and 20 degrees for like a week. So as you can see here now, wow, that was a nice gust of wind, but it is all gone. The lake here barely has any ice left on it, but we are headed toward another heavy cold spell here soon. So make sure that you know the weather, where you're going to be traveling to, because preparing for your nighttime expedition is very important because of the clothes that you choose. Make sure you have a good base layer, a couple light layers. I typically wear long underwear. I have these nice insulated pants, and I have a nice overall set that's insulated as well. Keeps me very warm in some of the coldest conditions. I typically have a long sleeve shirt, a light jacket, maybe a fleece, and then my winter coat. Hiking, I try to minimize my layers. I'll like tie them around my waist or something while I'm hiking. And then once I get to location, I'll then put on all the layers, because once you're standing around kind of waiting and doing your shots, it gets very cold very quick. Obviously, wind is a big factor too, especially if you're using a star tracker. In conditions like this where, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 mile an hour winds with 20 mile an hour gusts, not ideal for astro. So tonight might be a challenge, and I might have to come back tomorrow. So for tonight's weather, I'm looking at a low of about 25. Tomorrow, I'm looking at a low of about 10 to 15. So tomorrow, if I end up coming back here, it's going to be much, much colder and that much more awful. So once you got all that figured out, what's next? All right, so winter Milky Way panoramas, when is the best time to do them? And that is typically November through March. You can squeeze in some late season April panoramas right after sunset, but ideally November through March is the easiest time to kind of grab them. In November, it's going to be right before sunrise, and toward March and April, it's going to be right after sunset. Now, you're on location of your spot that you've chosen that you want to go out and take your shot. So next is figuring out when the Milky Way arch is going to line up with your scene. So let's test it out here. So let's take a look at our favorite planning apps, such as PhotoPills or Planet Pro. All right, so let's open up PhotoPills. So on the home screen, what we're gonna wanna do is we're gonna jump into the planner, top left. Let's set the date to today. So I'm gonna click on where it says 3/28 right here. And then the top corner, I'm gonna hit now. And then next thing, I'm gonna go to night AR. Okay. Hit visible calibration. Find the sun here. Looks like we're off. I'm gonna click the screen and drag, tap and drag right to where that sun is. I'm gonna hit OK. So let's try to find where it lines up. All right, that looks pretty good. I think that's pretty great. The Milky Way does get pretty high up, but I think that's gonna be my best composition, is here about 12:18. All right, well, I think that's pretty good. Before you get out here, when you're kind of planning and scouting in the virtual scouting phase, what you can do is also use the just the planner tool here. And once you set your location, these bubbles that you see, and if you scroll along here down at the bottom, you can see that about 12:18, just like I saw in virtual reality, these bubbles kind of follow along the path of my scene here. And that's also a great way to tell that that's the time that you need to be out here shooting your shot. And another tip for you guys to do is take panoramas of the foreground with your phone to see how the panorama is going to come out looking in your program. You can get an idea of what the foreground will look like before you actually get home and put it together. So this would be a great thing to do during the planning step once you get to your shot. So I'm going to go to ultra wide. Let's see, I'll start about here. Click and hold. I'm going to go all the way across. Here. There. That should kind of give you an idea of what it is. But I don't like that. I'm gonna get real close. Maybe right here. Boom. Yeah, I like this a lot better. All right, everybody, welcome back. It is about a week later and it is 10 degrees here. It is very challenging to keep warm. The lookout is right down here. I'm just trying to stay a little bit more in the trees here to try to stay a little bit warmer. So I'm gonna give you some quick in the field tips. So first things first, tripod as level as you can possibly get it at the base of where you're going to pan from. And then next is making sure that you have a ball head that has a nice arc switch attachment, and then it has degree markings at the base where you pan from. That is going to be really important, especially if we're going to get the right amount of overlap between each image. The next thing would be for your camera itself, either an L bracket, or a huge pano rig, or one of those atoll kind of ring bracket things, which I have for my Sony, which is really cool. So this is my Canon 6D. This just has a regular L bracket on it. And for panoramas, if I haven't mentioned before, it's best to shoot in portrait orientation. And next thing would be, if you haven't figured out what lens you're going to be using, now's the time to figure that out. Typically for panoramas, wider is easier. So something like a 14 millimeter, anything to 24 millimeter is typically recommended. So now that you have that kind of figured out, today I'm going to be using a 14 millimeter, and to figure out how many degrees I need to rotate my shot to have about, let's say, a 50% overlap between each image to make sure that each shot stitches together fairly easily, is use photo pills. They have a great field of view calculator that you can input your camera in, you can input your lens in, and it'll tell you in which orientation you're going to put your camera, what the horizontal field of view is for your camera. So for a 14 millimeter, I'll pop it up here as well, it's about 80 degrees when in portrait orientation. So I'm going to rotate about 40 degrees. And why I like 14 millimeter is it's pretty easy to eyeball about a 45 degree turn. So I almost never look at my base here that has the degree markers to ensure that I'm rotating the right amount, because I can eyeball 45 degrees pretty easily and then it stitches together just fine. And another reason 14 millimeter is great is you can typically get your entire sky and foreground in one row. And if you need to, you can take one row for the sky, one row for the foreground, and it merges together just fine if it is single shots. Of course, if you're going to take tracked shots of the sky, you're going to have one row for the foreground, you merge that, you have one row or however many rows you need for your sky, depending on your focal length, then you merge that, and then you're going to blend those together in Photoshop later, or whatever program does that for you. So without further ado, this moon is about to set here. So I'm going to go down. I can hear some wind. I'm not 100% sure if I really want to set up the tracker or not, because I really just want to get out of here because it's so cold. But the sky shot honestly shouldn't take me too long if I keep the exposure short, because I only need like 5 or 6 shots for the sky. And then I can just dip out of here, because boy, is it cold. But without further ado, I think it's time to go get set up. Whew. That may have been one of the most challenging things I have ever done. I might stick to some easy drivable spots here for the next couple trips, but if you're planning a big winter hike, especially if there's a lot of snow, make sure that your fitness level is up to par with something as strenuous as that. So thank you so much for watching this portion of the video, and I will see you guys in part 2 where we put this together. So make sure you click on the next video. See you there.